Today, we're diving into what I think is the most empowering skill that you can learn for your business and your career, and that is sales. Because if you can sell, you will never worry about where your next client, role, or opportunity is going to come from. I'm Riley, this is Ped, and we spent over 30 years and $100,000 of our own money building our own businesses. And this show is here to help you build yours for less. Welcome to Change Champions.
Welcome as well from me here in London. I love this one because most people think that sales is only for pushy extroverts or CEOs or those kind of salespeople that you see in the movies. Buy high, sell low, and just push, push, push. But once you see things differently, it's not just a business skill, it is a career passport, and it'll let you breathe easy when others are gasping for air. So stick around because what we're going to do in this episode is break things down. The biggest myth that's keeping smart professionals stuck, why the usual fixes won't work, and how to reframe sales so that you actually make a difference because you're more confident and in control of your future.
Cool. So, first of all, let's kind of explain the idea around, at least the idea that I have had, and I think a lot of other people have had, which is that sales is scary, feels scary. We often I actually I think I had a poll on this not too long ago on LinkedIn. I don't know if you saw that, Ped. And it was like, what's the most common um connection that people think of? And it's immediately like the balding used car salesman when you say the word sales. So more often than not, people, think of sales, they feel it feels scary. But in reality, staying stuck actually feels much worse. And I think most people think if they just do great work, that opportunities will follow. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like that probably used to be more of the case. And I don't say it'll never happen, but it kind of means like you're relying on luck a little bit and like happenstance or chance. And the reality in today's world is if you don't figure out how to sell or at least sell yourself, right? Then you're waiting for others to give you permission to grow. And that keeps you capped and that keeps you stuck.
Yeah, that's no way to grow a business. There's no way for you to even have an impact. And we were talking about the attitudes that people might have about sales, about being manipulative or just for extroverts. For me, this faulty belief really started when I was at university. I'd just become an adult, as it were. And I remember being 19. I was visiting a friend in Hong Kong. A friend of mine lived there, and it was great visiting there. This was back in 1999. And yes, that is the previous century. And I do feel old saying that. But Hong Kong was there was an area in Hong Kong known to get really great electronics, and I foolishly decided to go there on my own without the chaperone of my friend who was a local, and got totally screwed over by the salesperson there because they manipulated me into buying a camcorder. A camcorder, remember those days with film? That was way above my budget, and the reality was with that camcorder, it was also completely, I got ripped off. It was, they sold me a cheaper good for way more and just bamboozled, manipulated me into getting it. And that just felt awful. So that's a manipulative bit.
Yeah.
Extrovert, that's the other weird faulty belief that I had that stopped me for many years from really embracing this idea of fact that I can be a salesperson as well. That I can sell myself, I can sell my work. But a friend of mine who I met at university, he eventually got into property sales. He's now retired. He made a lot of good money doing that into property development. But he had grown up selling trinkets and whatnot at weekend markets with his parents. And so he was just a cheeky chappy, you know, lad from Yorkshire who was just had a good gift of the gab. That's to use
So
more
British.
expressions. Yeah. And when he got into property sales straight after university, he got given a brand new Mini Cooper, driving around in London, earning really good commission. But he loved it, absolutely loved it. He was just talking about nearly making a sale, not making a sale, then making the sale, and it was just this big game, and it was a game that he really enjoyed because it was so extroverted, and I just didn't see myself in that either. So these two, like, experiences really early on in my kind of career or my formative time as an adult just made me want to avoid sales completely.
Yeah, and it's so I think it's so common. I mean, it comes up with so often with the different coaches that I meet, consultants that I speak with, and it's I actually think it. I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole here, but when it comes to manipulation, it's like, what does that actually mean? And I think this is where it becomes a slippery slope, but it is quite a bit of overlap in comparison to just influence. And I think truly the heart of sales is about influence and guiding people through like we'll get more into kind of what sales is in a second, but I think like without that knowledge, I think this is really the crux of the problem here, right? Is this faulty belief, these kind of misplaced ideologies almost of like what it means to sell yourself or to sell something. But that part of the other problem that this causes is something I experienced firsthand when, so not as like a victim, right, of air quotes here for people listening, of sales, but as someone who was on the other side of it, but not in the driver's seat. So I remember when I was the COO of a startup and I had my hands on practically every part of the business. I was building things, I was hiring, I was managing, I was firing. I mean, it was like everything except for sales. It was the one department I basically had no input on. And when we were trying to go into growth mode, that's like the most important part
Yeah.
of the
Yes.
business I mean, even how you define growth, right? Is like to hire, to be able to afford that, to bring in more revenue. A lot of people talk about growth as either like number of employees or the amount of revenue that you're pulling in or profit, right? And that all comes from sales. And so, even though on paper it was a very powerful position, I actually felt powerless without the
Mm.
sales skills. And uh, again, even as an entrepreneur, technically like the number two in the company, I still I was handicapped without having these tools on my tool belt.
Yeah, well, sales is a bit like oxygen, isn't it, for business? You need it. You need oxygen as a human to breathe and live and all those things. Same with business. It needs sales. It needs the money from sales to function, to pay the people that are in the business, pay for the resource and all those things. And so, yeah, without those sales skills, of course, it makes sense that it feels like you're gasping for air if you don't have sales.
Yeah.
And that's again, well, it feels like it's bringing up a like a trauma experience of just feeling suffocated talking about it.
Well, let's maybe to help other people avoid some of the traumatic
Yeah.
experiences, or to move past them, with this some healing. Um, let's talk about. I want to ask you, Ped, to maybe share some of those experiences of like the usual fixes, things that we've tried that don't necessarily work, and I think a lot of people maybe use some of these things as a crutch when they don't actually like dig into sales.
Yeah, it's definitely a crutch for sure, or a crutch that that isn't even made out of anything solid. It's just suddenly you're like leaning on it, and then it just crumbles underneath your arm. But yeah, my favorite procrastinatory activity, polishing off websites. Once I finish my website, I'll be ready to start making sales. I'll be ready to put things out there. Waiting for word of mouth. That is the way that I built my business to begin with. And it worked for a while until your network kind of runs dry or until the people that know you might not need your service. And if you want to start getting more proactive, I know that something that I tried that just felt wrong, and I get so much of this right now as well, is trying to your pitch your services in an outreach message because you hear you've got to like tell people what you do, and again that feels off. Or if you go to some traditional good old fashioned in-person networking things. You know, you go there, meet a bunch of people, and you're just collecting business cards that you never look at again. I've still got a stack of them. You know, it's like pick a card, any card. Who is
And
this person? You're like, yeah. Those are the things that I've tried and didn't really give me that breathing space or oxygen.
I have tried all of the above, every single one of them, on multiple occasions and with different clients. For people who are listening that don't know, I used to be kind of like the nuts and bolts guy behind many different businesses. The ops consultants, one client, I'm probably still listed somewhere on the back end of their website as King of the Ops
Oh, yeah.
was the title I had. Um, so like building out the landing pages and the different website, they're literally different websites. I mean, for just like entirely different, almost like different businesses. I've
Yeah.
done so many of those things, and I've waited for word of mouth. So yes, been there, done that. And it's funny you mentioned business cards. I literally tell clients like that if this comes up, I don't know if you've seen me post about this in our community, Ped, but I will
I've
literally
used
when they ask about business cards, I'm like, don't use them. I'd much rather. So a hot tip for anyone, first time watchers, listeners, or return, I guess anyone, all the above. I prefer to not bring them. You can use any excuse in the book that you want, like you just ran out. It doesn't really matter. And just say either take theirs instead or just take their contact information. Uh,
you
and
know,
there's like so
well,
many like virtual, but there's so many different ways to do it. But
you know,
it's so the
LinkedIn,
ball's in
just
your court.
and yeah, another kind of little tip for you watching, if you don't know this, some people find this like magic. LinkedIn, the LinkedIn app on your phone has a QR code scanner and a QR code piece. So you can get your QR code uh, and other people can scan yours, or what you're saying is do it the other way around. Say, hey, let me show you this thing. Let me get your LinkedIn from your phone.
Yeah,
Works.
yeah. Actually, that's a neat little party trick. If you look that up and teach people how to do it, I actually wouldn't even know off the top of my head like where. I mean, give me 10 seconds on Google and I'd have it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. It's
but
pretty
point the
straightforward, but that's all we're here to talk about. Yeah.
yeah the point is it's about taking back control, and it's like not waiting on other people. And same thing goes for like, let's say you haven't started your business as well, or maybe you're just kind of dabbling, like kind of thinking about it and still sort of what do they call that? A entrepreneur, someone who's kind of dreaming about it and not necessarily
Yes.
doing it yet.
And that's
Um, but if you're like climbing that corporate ladder, I think the myth uh, that's there is like promotions aren't about tenure anymore. Like it used to be, you just you put your head down, you do the work, people will show up, you'll get recognition, you'll get your gold watch after 30 years or whatever the time frame
yeah.
is. And the reality is, I wish I knew the stat off the top of my head, but it's like X percentage of jobs didn't even exist 30 years ago. And how many jobs are AI gonna displace or replace? And so, it's much less about just put your head down and do the work and just rely on tenure and like over time, like it's just going to happen for me. And it's much more about visibility and influence. And that is sales. It's again, it's whether you're selling and actually the people we work with, Ped, like coaches, consultants, trainers, facilitators, the solopreneurs, service-based entrepreneurs and businesses, I think that's where there's actually the most overlap, because if you are employed, then you are already selling a skill to your employer. They're not actually buying your time, they're buying a skill. And that is the exact same thing you'd be selling if you were on your own, like you're still selling a skill. And so just even having the language and the knowledge and the wherewithal of like understanding what this process actually looks like, and kind of removing or decluttering some of those like myths, or
Yeah, right.
the bald car used salesman that's in your head, like that just, even if you never started a business, like it still is so helpful because you can still advance your career. Like we're talking about your career options
Yeah,
ultimately at
yeah,
this
yeah.
point.
But it's also different when we're talking about selling a skill. We're also not really saying to go out and get extra certificates. And I really want to make that clear. Certificates do have their role to a point. Like, so I'm not saying never get a certificate, never get extra training, but that's not the thing that you're selling. That's not, and also that's not the thing people are buying either. And so that's one thing that we will consistently like remind our clients and remind people who are thinking about our clients. You don't need another certificate to do the work that you want to do. You probably have enough certificates already to do the work you want to do. And it's just a convenient way of hiding behind not wanting to sell. Because if selling feels sleazy, it's because you've probably been burnt before, like I have, like I was earlier, but being manipulated or just seeing people that are like really extroverted and thinking that's not me. So yeah, should we talk about like what sales is and what sales
Yeah.
now
So
that we've talked about what it isn't?
there's a way out. But wait, there's more. There's an answer. And so it's really reframe is the simplest way I can put it. If you have one takeaway from this episode, please just like think of sales in this new way. And we like to call it SaaS, like the software, right? But it's sales as a service. So so what that means is that sales is really about listening and empathy and guidance, and it's the same skills that if you already are a coach or consultant or even like a leader, um, executive, I don't know, and like you probably have some of these skills already to be good at that level, be good at that position. And so, point being, it's it is servitude. It is you are not trying to manipulate so much as you are trying to uncover and identify a problem and the bridge or the solution over the gap or the hurdle or the whatever the obstacle is. And so like it's just a different way of looking at sales.
Yeah, it's the same skill that you've got. And in a way, if you can reframe or reimagine the skills that you've got, all the things that you said about listening, empathy, being of service, it essentially acts like an insurance policy. You'll never be broke. You'll never be jobless. You'll never be stuck because of those skills.
It actually reminds me of so I recently completed so like just to put this, so we both shared our experiences, but I can share someone else's as well. So I recently completed some pro bono coaching. Um, I can't even remember the name of the company. It doesn't even matter. Basically, I got matched with some um, government employees who had least recently been laid off due to some U.S. policy changes in recent months. I'll just leave it at that. It's so um, there's a lot of government employees that were just in like with one email, they're like, "You don't have a job,"
Yeah.
and what do we do next? And there's this one woman I remember talking to who spent almost 20 years with the same organization, and I think she'd gotten like top like I forget what she called it, but it was like top reviews, top ratings for 19 out of 20 years.
It's, wow.
19 out of 20, like good at her job, right? And I guess to consolidate the point here, when they when they lost their job, they lost 100% of their incomes. And it just was kind of another smack. I've heard this like when I was first starting my very first business. I remember listening to this freelancer. I believe his name was Kai Davis. Shout out to Kai Davis if you're still doing your thing. Haven't looked him up in forever. And he said there's a common misconception that a job is safer, more secure than starting your own business. But if you lose one employer, that is 100% of your income.
Yes.
And this just reminded me of that. If we lose a client, it is like a fraction. I mean, it's less than 5%, less than three. I'd have to figure out what
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it's like it's so just the math alone, I think, kind of
Yep.
is it just screams that you need to have these skills to be able to sell yourself and to put yourself into a position where you're not reliant on just, oh, I hope my boss recognizes my good work, or I hope that this 18th coaching certification is going to bring magically clients to just show up on my doors. Like it just doesn't work like that. You have to be able to advocate for yourself. Is it's advocate for yourself and then helping other people solve problems. That is the really you're serving two people at the same time. Like it's yourself
And
and others.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of curious what happened to this person you were doing the pro bono coaching with? Like, so top top performer. Where is she now? Do you know? Or
Unfortunately,
was she able to herself?
oh, well, yes. I mean, like that was the one of the big takeaways. I won't go too deep because
Yes, for sure,
it
sure.
goes into like, yeah, it's yeah, I mean, a lot of confidence building. It's a lot of like put yourself out there. Um, and kind of my role was just it was only a few sessions, again, pro bono, and just like kind of they kind of like cut it off there. But last I heard, they were getting uh job interviews. And I think it's like, oh, so you go from 100% of your income being lost to creating
Yeah,
more opportunities within like a few weeks. I think that's an
yeah,
exciting place to be. But imagine if you were already there. Imagine if
yeah.
you already had this
Oh,
opportunity. And
that's
I'm
good.
not saying like they should be applying to jobs every month, but again, if you had the skills, it's just like when I moved on from my COO position, I was able to build a six-figure income within 12 months. It's because I'd
Yeah.
already built the network and the skills and the like. Had something to go on.
It's about a bit like having a passport, isn't it? Where the sales, your sales skills is your passport, and that allows you to have cross borders, like whether those borders are from one job to another or from one client to getting another client, and just crossing that chasm of that regularity. But also, I mean, it would, I don't know, the globalized world, maybe it's in peril right now, but it is one of those skills that is, from a geographical sense, cross border as well. If you can show yourself to bring in revenue, then whether you're working for a business who'll want a skill like that, or I've got friends who have gone to different parts of the world using entrepreneur visas. They've had to prove that they can earn a certain amount of money, that they're bringing a certain amount of money a into a country. Like one friend of mine, the brother of the salesperson, FYI, that I was mentioning earlier, was also a salesperson. He's maybe I should get you to chat with him. He set up an office in New York, and and for that he's had to employ Americans, and he admits that this is more of a lifestyle decision for him and his wife, who really wanted to live in New York and just experience the razzle dazzle, the kind of the glitz and glam of New York.
A career passport to like a literal passport.
Yeah, yeah, a literal passport. So yeah, I can see it working on multiple levels of the passport.
Yeah, I mean it's options, isn't it? I guess really what we're talking about here is like having sales skills makes you the professional that has options. And I mean, I've talked to so many people about this, but I think it's just worth repeating that like my personal definition of financial freedom actually doesn't have a whole lot to do with finances, interestingly enough. But I think if you can get really clear on what it is that you want, whatever that is, and the price tag that goes along with it, because that's just the reality of the world we live in. Um, there's death and taxes, the two guarantees in life, right?
Yes.
So, um, then, you might, number one, realize that you can already do some of whatever those things are on your bucket list. Like in the
Yeah.
current situation you're in right now, I think that's really empowering. Number one, you don't need to change anything. That's just a light bulb moment in your head. A little bit of clarity. Great. Second thing
Mm.
is, if there's a gap between, um, like let's say you can only do that 10% of the time, but you'd love to do it like half of the time. I don't know, whatever that thing is. Maybe it's like gardening and like farming your backyard. I don't know. But if you can learn how to monetize whatever the thing is, which people will pay for that, food and flowers and honey and I don't know, whatever else you are farming in the backyard, um, then to me that's freedom. Because anyone I've met doesn't actually want to just sit on the beach and sip pina coladas for the rest of their life. It's more about it, uh, it's more about doing what they want when they want with who they want, which means it's not freedom from anything, it's freedom to. And freedom to what? Fill in the blank. So when you fill in that blank, and you figure out what the practical logistics are of like monetizing or closing the gap so you can cover your bills or whatever that lifestyle is, then I would call that a business. And so starting a
Yeah,
business feels like and the number one skill to have for the business skill, because obviously there's the whatever like it's tending your
your
crops
craft.
and your
Yeah,
honeybees or yeah, your craft, right? Coaching, consulting, leadership, whatever, then that's where it's the working on the business is the sales. And I just think that's it's very hopeful.
yeah. Well, when we put it like this, it definitely is very empowering to think that you're in complete control and you have complete choice about where you take your life, where you take your business, if you can figure out the skills of selling.
Yeah.
It's very
So
simple.
recapping that, and maybe we should have another episode on just if people are listening, watching, I don't know, wherever you are, whatever your platform of choice is. Always open for ideas, feedback, comments, suggestions. So if you want to drill down deeper into this topic, just let us know. But uh, big takeaway here is hopefully at this point you recognize that sales is not sleazy. It's not just for pushy personalities, and it's not something to be scared of or to be, fearful of. Feared of, scared of. I'll say scared of. It's really about just taking back control, focusing on the things that are in your control. And if you can learn how to sell, and it starts with this mindset shift, that's sort of the big idea in this episode, then you will never be stuck waiting for permission again.
Yeah. Well, if you start looking at sales as an act of service, that mindset that you're just talking about, listening, guiding, helping people make good decisions, it just feels good. You have an impact, you make money doing it, and it gives you options. We talked about it being the oxygen tank and the passport and the insurance policy or insurance, policy. That's right. All in one place.
Yeah, it's definitely the further I go in my career, I think the more sales has felt enjoyable for me as well, because it really is exactly that about guiding others, helping others. And if you have found this episode to be helpful, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. All the things really helps more people like you to save time and money. And if you haven't already, join our newsletter where we share additional goodies to help you turn your expertise into offers that people actually want to buy.
Great. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.